Bleach's 1000-year Blood War arc has been a roller coaster of a lot of things happening in this arc. For someone who hasn't really read the original source material and has heard so many good things on how the anime has improved the source material, it's really great to see this series get a ton of love and respect. And I think the battles between the Soul Reapers and the Quincy's has been really something that shows us just how intense these two groups are, and how each group has members in their own groups that are very powerful and could become a very dangerous individual if you are not able to handle them correctly. Now, going into the Quincy side, there's a lot of Quincy's that have made a really good job into making an impact to the story and as well as making an impact to the other characters in the series. But if there's one Quincy that really left their mark, and it quickly shows us just how despite them only being introduced in this arc alone, they were able to make us remember them of who they were, and despite them being only there for a short time, now being one of the most unforgettable characters in this series. And this is none other than Bambietta, the Quincy who came out strong, and it was very clear that every time she was on the screen, she always had a lot to show what kind of person they truly are and what their ideals and what their beliefs are that truly make them a very unique character. But even though Bambietta was a Quincy and was an enemy to the Soul Reapers, her end in the series was very tragic, and it's very unfortunate to see a character, while despite her not being the nicest person in the Bleach series, the way she was taken out was very tragic to see. And it really just goes to show us how Bleach is able to make even the antagonists of their series defeats very sad to watch, and Bambietta was one of those antagonists. And that's what I'll be focusing on in today's video, the tragic end of a Quincy known as Bambietta. Bambietta Basterbine is a Quincy that is one of the soldiers of Yuha Bog's army, but that didn't mean that she was alone. She actually created her own group known as the Bambis that consisted of other people who were part of Yuha Bog's army as well, this being Latoto, Meninas, Candice, and Gazelle, all other members of the Yuha Bog's army that decided to be part of Bambietta's group, meaning that Bambietta was the leader of this entire group. However, despite her being young, she showed her sadistic side and what kind of twisted personality she had while she was still in this arc. Bambietta was somebody that really had no problems causing a lot of destruction and has no problems of taking down many people that are considered enemies, because for her, winning is all that matters, because the point in a fight is to be able to be the last one standing and be the winner of that fight because you want to survive. That is how Bambietta views her fights. She views them as something that needs to be done if you want to survive and live your life. There's no point in losing, because if you were to lose in a fight, for her that's just simply throwing your life away for no good reason. This is why whenever she's in a fight, she's so determined to win, because she wants to survive to live to see another day. However, going back to her sadistic behavior, Bambietta was very quick to show us how even despite her being a Quincy, she had a habit of mistreating other Quincy's as well. When it was announced that Uryu was going to be the next successor to Yuha Bog, in order to take out her frustration and annoyance, she decided to invite some guy from the Quincy army to her room for quote-unquote special relief, only to take them out once they are in her room, quickly showing us how she has no problem taking someone's life if it means venting out her frustration. And based on the conversation with the other Bambis of her group, it's very clear this isn't the first time she has done it, which makes it even more sadistic as you come to realize that Bambietta really is perfectly fine taking someone else's life if it means taking out her frustration. It really shows us just how twisted some of these Quincy's are. But with that being said, there is a side in Bambietta that is very vulnerable. Despite her appearing as very egotistical and clearly somebody that you should not mess with because nothing you say or do is going to affect her, Bambietta does have a side of her that really makes her all the more human, and that is that she doesn't want to be abandoned and she doesn't want to be alone, clearly showing us that Bambietta does have a side of her that makes her feel humane. But it is a side of her that she really is embarrassed and doesn't really like to talk about it all that much. It really makes us wonder if all the things she says and does throughout this arc is really only just a way for her to not appear weak, so that people don't think of her as somebody that is not really worth talking to or being around with. So in order to prevent all this from happening, Bambietta puts up this acting all high and mighty, when in reality she just simply is doing all this just so she cannot be alone. Of course, this doesn't justify the things she does, but it is something that's worth mentioning because it does reveal a lot more things that make Bambietta such a very complex character. This will be shown furthermore in her second battle with Kamamura, because despite the first one ending with victory on her, she didn't actually finish off Kamamura. However, in this second fight with Kamamura, she actually did have intent to finish him off once and for all. However, it was during this time where Bambietta realizes that Kamamura was much more stronger than their first battle, and this is because he made sacrifices in order to get the power that he has now. And what were these sacrifices? Well, it was him offering his heart in order to make himself more powerful, and the reason why he did this was to use that power to finish off Yubak. This of course shocks Bambietta because it doesn't go with her ideals of winning a battle. Why was he risking his life? Why was he sacrificing his life all just to get revenge on their leader? Since once again, her ideals in fighting is that you want to win. You want to win to see another day, and the reason why someone would want to win a battle is because that person doesn't want to die just yet. But this was completely the opposite with Kamamura, because he was throwing his life away in order to win this battle, which went completely against Bambietta's beliefs. However, despite all this, Bambietta was still determined to defeat Kamamura. Sure, it did surprise what he was doing, but for her it wasn't a big deal because she believed that she was much more powerful than him and that nothing he did was going to defeat her. But in these moments, Bambietta will soon face reality and realize that no matter what she does or what attack she used against Kamamura and his Bankai, he was going to win this battle, and that's exactly what happened. Kamamura uses everything he got to defeat Bambietta, and after Bambietta's defeat, she starts to clearly show panic and frustration as she knows what's going to happen to her if her defeat is discovered. And sadly, this would be the ultimate end of Bambietta, as one of her members of her group, this being Gazelle, tells Bambietta that she does not need to worry because they are going to quote unquote save her. But you can see in the fear in Bambietta's face that is not what's truly going to happen, and pleads to them not to do anything. But of course, that is not going to happen, as fast forward later on, we will come to find out that Bambietta was turned into a zombie thanks to Gazelle's abilities to turn people into zombies, in which Gazelle explains that while it is very easy to turn Soul Reapers into zombies, it's actually very hard to turn a Quincy into a zombie, and the only way for that to happen is if the Quincy is fully dead, making it very disturbing as you realize that Gazelle actually took the life of Bambietta in order to make her a zombie, which of course for some people it may not seem too dark, but you have to keep in mind that Gazelle and Bambietta were on the same team. They were both Quincy's, so the fact that they did this to their own teammate is pretty dark, and it doesn't get any better as Gazelle quickly shows us just how demented and twisted they truly are, as Gazelle proceeds to mistreat Bambietta in every possible way, and all Bambietta can do is really nothing because it's not really her, it's a zombie that just simply is supposed to obey orders. And that's really the most tragic thing about this, is the fact that Bambietta went from someone who seemed to be very egotistical, somebody who thought themselves as a very powerful person that can never be defeated by anybody, now being turned into a mindless zombie that has to simply obey orders just like that. This is just another example of someone having a fate worse than death, because Bambietta really in these moments probably thinks that it's better off to not be in this world anymore, but now that she's a zombie and she is in Gazelle's control, that's not really possible. This is not me saying that this is going to be forever, because towards the end of Core 2, when Gazelle is defeated, she's actually sucking on Bambietta's blood in order to regain her powers, and when Bambietta asks her not to drink too much blood, this is where Gazelle loses her mind and actually decides to completely kill Bambietta by smashing her head repeatedly, only for her to say how she looks very beautiful when she is dead. Again, further proving how Gazelle is a very insane individual, further proving that not all Quincy's are right in the head, some of them are just really that crazy. And that will be the unfortunate end of Bambietta, someone that really was determined to survive at all costs, but unfortunately will be defeated, and to make things even worse, she will be betrayed by the group that she formed. Sure, Gazelle was the one that turned into a zombie, but the other members in the group did nothing to stop Gazelle from doing that. It was very clear that they really did not care about Bambietta and didn't care if Bambietta lived to see another day. And that's what makes this betrayal so much more worse, because these weren't just nobodies. These were people that were supposedly on the same side as Bambietta, the same people that were fighting the Soul Reapers due to the things that they had to deal with because of the Soul Reapers, only for these moments for Bambietta to realize that the same people that she was fighting alongside with will eventually turn their backs on her, and one of them will make her a mindless zombie to do the fighting for her. Of course, this is not me just justifying everything she did. As I already said earlier, she wasn't the greatest person. She did have a very nasty attitude and personality, but the things that she had to go through in her final moments and how her body and her mind was used are things that nobody should ever have to experience. Bambietta was just simply better off just not existing anymore if this was what she had to go through after her defeat. And while yes, she would eventually be killed off by Gazelle later on, it was an instinct. Gazelle literally hit her head so many times that really it took a while for her to be fully finished. And that's why Bambietta's death is probably one of the worst deaths of the Quincy's, because unlike the other Quincy's defeats and deaths were very quick, and that's about it. But with Bambietta, she had to experience a lot of terrible things before she passed away, and the terrible things were mostly because of Gazelle and her twisted mind. And that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.